Thank you for coming for Mind Matters Navigate Mental Health Challenge in Student Life. I would like to acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 land, the traditional and ancestral territory of Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Nakota, Sioux. We acknowledge that we are on traditional territory of the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit on Alberta, and express gratitude and respect for the land we use. We use pledge to end systematic racism, commit to create a safe area based on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before we proceed, normal housekeeping rules. Please be respectful, shut off your cell phone. In case of emergency, we have a first aid kit on the site. Please hold on to your question till end. Complete the feedback form which is in front of you, and it has a QR code also. You can do online or you can do a paper copy. The format is on 3 segments. Segment 1 is an introduction of all the panelists. Second one is we are going to do to the question which they will be answering. And the third is a question answer. After the question answer, we will have a light snacks will be served also around 1 o'clock. So the first segment, we are starting with the introduction. So every panelist will introduce him or herself and talk about what their passion is, what their background is, and we will proceed accordingly. So we will start. Dr. Gill, please.
So thank you, Sunil. My name is Harpreet Gill, and I'm a registered psychologist in the province of Alberta. I have been practicing here for more than 17 years, and I have my private practice here in Edmonton as well. I usually, especially work with adults from like whether they have adjustment issues, self-esteem problems, anxiety, stress. I work with couples as well. I also work for the Psychologists Association of Alberta, and I'm the director of professional guidance there. So basically, my role is ethics related. So I provide consults to the members who have any ethical dilemmas. I develop resources and webinars and workshops. And I'm married, I have 2 children. I enjoy reading, traveling, spending time with my children, and of course, socializing. So that's important as well. So thank you all, and I'm really looking forward to this panel talk today.
Thank you, Dr. Gill. Jose could not come because he got sick and he's at the doctor. So he sent his apologies. Samira.
Summer.
Right. Sorry.
No
if
problem.
I mispronounce your name,
Not a problem.
Apologies.
I get that a lot. So my name is Samar Al-Hajjaj, and I am a financial advisor with World Financial Group. I moved to Canada about 8 years ago, and I found myself searching for the right path here. And being from the corporate world and realizing that I can't go back to working for anybody, I decided into going into the financial industry. And I'm licensed in both Alberta and Ontario. My job is basically giving people advice, educating them about finances, and making sure that they're set up for life, basically. My ideal person is just somebody who wants to better themselves. And I'm pretty sure that everybody wants to do that. So that became a passion because I love to educate and help people reach their goals, no matter what they are. So that is my mission of educating people.
Thank you, Summer. Tabat. Is I'm pronouncing your name or I'm too close?
It's close. Tabitha. Hi there. I'm Tabitha Dohanyuk. I'm a realtor for 20 years. I'm with Maxwell Devonshire Realty. I've been there for the last 4 years, and I'm a mother of 2 grown sons that both are elite hockey players that have played 5 seasons in the WHL, and happily married to my husband, a partner of 30 years. And I'm always about bettering ourselves, continuously learning, and positive reinforcement. So mindfulness and frequency and energy are my jam, and I I love what I do because I get to, help people with one of the biggest investments they make in their life, and I help navigate that 20 years of seeing different properties and helping people make the right choice, and I'm not satisfied until they absolutely love it. So I use all of those tools in everyday life, and with having athletes, high performance athletes, your mindfulness is your number one thing. So life is mental, and I'm all about that.
So I'm Jonathan Ney. I graduated the University of Alberta with a major in biology and a minor in chemistry. I'm currently pursuing my master's in oncology, and I guess I like winter sports and working on cars, and I do road construction, so that's fun. But in general, I'm here because I'm a big advocate for mental health. I think especially in university, academics can sometimes cloud your mind and keep you distracted from what's important, and your mental health plays a huge role in how you perform, and I think it goes underreported how important it is for students to take care of their mental health in addition to their academics.
Hi, my name's Darren Beach. I'm work for Inclusion Alberta, and I work in inclusive post-secondary education, which is an initiative that supports individuals with intellectual disabilities to be fully included in regular programs of study in post-secondary, so to follow their dreams and goals. A bit of my background, so I sort of came into this work of inclusion, belonging, diversity, equity, really early out of my sort of college experience, and first working in student residences, and then just seeing how much support students need to navigate their lives in university, and also how many barriers pop up in the course of trying to navigate those things, and especially for marginalized groups. And so that really became a passion of mine. In my graduate studies, I also was in education and really looking into diversity, equity, inclusion in post-secondary settings for marginalized groups. So that's really where my passion lies, and I've been doing that for about 20 years now. So.
Awesome. Well, hi everyone. My name is Tanrup Mahal, and I am a third-year human resources student currently at NAIT. Looking at the panelists here, as I was really excited to see, I'm pretty sure I'm the youngest one here, so I'm only 21, but just to learn from everyone here and just to be in this room today with everyone. I love doing content creation in the community. I started my kind of passion as a social media content creator with a company called Apna Hockey. So Apna in our language means hour. So we're growing the game of hockey in the South Asian community. And so we recently just came back from the Four Nations Cup final in Boston. And I think it's so important to have the inclusivity and connections in the community as well. So had a passion for community engagement, and then I got my role in NAIT. So I work with the NAIT Student Association. I'm the promotions coordinator over there, promoting all the events that we do on campus for students, really creating fostering a positive campus life experience, and just touching on today about mental health and the little things you can do to better yourself, even in school or even at home. So glad to be here today.
Thank you, Tanrup. So Tanrup, you are the last and the youngest. So we will start our first question to you too, from you. So Tanrup, you mentioned you are studying at NAIT, you are volunteer, you part of different community group also. So how do you keep balance, right? And take the pressure from every side? Like when you volunteer is still a commitment, when you're studying is a commitment. So as a student, what struggles you face when you are doing the community work, doing the volunteer work, as well as when you are studying? What challenges or struggles you have?
Yeah, for sure. So struggles, I think they all start within ourselves, right? For me personally, I loved the idea of connecting with people and hearing their stories. That's how I kind of made my ideologies. I wanted to learn what people brought to the table and learn from them. That's kind of particularly why I kind of got into the HR role. But in volunteering and starting at a very young age, I've started working with the EPS Foundation and volunteered with their groups as well. I volunteered at the Juno Awards when they came to Edmonton as well. there's been a few struggles, and I wanted to highlight a couple of them that kind of came to my mind when I was actually driving here today. The idea of getting out of your comfort zone is very cliche, and we always say it, but it's actually huge. So when you are in your own little bubble and you wanna grow into a new segment, into something new in your life, it's always important to think about how you can kind of better yourself in that way. So whether that's small things of taking care of your mental health, but that comfort zone piece, you're only going to get so far when you're in your own little bubble. Trying something new is huge, and that's what I've been kind of doing ever since I was young. So dipping my toes in any small, big activity that I found that I loved, whether that was up in a hockey or even at NAIT. Volunteering does get you out of your comfort zone and trying something new, and that's where you can make your mistakes, and then you can learn from those mistakes when you get in the workforce. Those are one of the struggles that I saw, and I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit of the struggles that people and even students I see at NAIT is don't be afraid to reach out. Even on campus and universities, there's so many resources, and we pay for those resources in our tuitions, right? There's so many fees that are in our tuitions that we pay for. Make sure you utilize all of those resources that are available. There's counseling services, there's journalism if you're ever into marketing. The campuses really provide a cohesive experience for everyone and the students, and I was really glad and able to kind of hop on that at a very young age and to engage in the NAIT community. We do have a lot of international students. I know one of the panelists will touch on some of the international struggles that international students face, but that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed is some of the international students that were there, they were just afraid to reach out for help, right? It's always that one ask that you have to do. And if that makes it easier if I'm South Asian or if they can reach out to someone that they know, I think that's one less step that we have to go through in order to better help them in mental health or any other struggles you're going through. But that reaching out with the first hand and learning from their stories makes a huge difference in my life as well. So hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Tanrup.
And yeah.
Thank you, Tanrup. Caroline, as Tanrup mentioned, coming from different part of the world, right? I personally, we came from different part of the world. I came from India. Tanrup is from India. You have come from you are studying first, the most important things, you are doing your counseling psychology at the University of Lethbridge, right? And you have come from the different part of the world also. So when you come from different part of the world, what challenges we face? It could be language, could be adjusting, weather conditions. So what was your challenges?
My name is Carolina Mendez. I'm a student at the University of Lethbridge. Thank you for participating in this event. And answering your question, one of the things that I have most that was a challenge for me was the language, the barrier language that I had, and also to find a community here, because sometimes I just had my small family, my husband and 2 children, so sometimes it was very hard to find community, but I asked for help. So during university, by the end of my 4th year in psychology, I was able to have a small group of friends, and also I faced financial struggles as well. I just realized that I could have a student loan on my 2nd year of university, which is I applied for, and I didn't know about grants and awards, so something that through the Psychologists Association of Alberta, I was able to apply for grants and study there, study and work at the same time during the summer. So, yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Taba. So my question to you is, Tanrup and Carolina, they talk about the struggles we face, right? My question to you as a parent and as a mother, what happened, I have done it too, right? When we do work outside or whatever the stress, we can't take it out at work or to the coworker. I wish I could, but it doesn't happen. It come back everything to home. You have your own struggle, you have your own challenges, and you have 2 wonderful kids who are in university and they are involved in the sports. When they bring struggle home, how it impacts you as a mother or a parent?
Thank you. Yeah, well, of course, when our kids are suffering or are having a hard time or things aren't going as smoothly in their world or going in the direction that they want, we as parents take that on and we have that, that mama bear instinct that we want to protect them. But what my husband and I have learned over the last few years of doing a lot of inner growth, inner work, mindfulness, practicing daily meditation, taking the time to slow down and stay present. And so with that, we've taught those tools to our kids, and we play frequency music in our house 24/7. I have frequency music playing where when you come into my house, it feels like a warm hug. We're doing things to try to control our environment so that we can keep our inner environment strong, and it's about looking at the positive in life, right? We all have struggles, and if we choose to keep talking about them or keep dwelling on them, we can stay stuck there. And so with that, we've used all the different tools of, breath work, taking a deep breath, right? Breathing in for the count of 4. I'd like everybody to try it now. Breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. Hold it for 4 seconds. And then exhale for 4 seconds. And all of a sudden, you're present and you're not in that fight or flight. And you can start rationally thinking and making thinking about positive things and where you want to go instead of being stuck where you're at.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Jonathan. So Jonathan, I know you from last 5 or 6 years, right? So you have been studying, and then you have been community work. My question to you is, you have been involved with the fraternity, right?
Yeah.
How it has helped you to move on, and how the group support each other. It's and the same thing, pressure too, you guys party quite a lot, studying, financial, how all work together for future?
That's a good question. I think the biggest way is just a sense of community. So you come into the university, or any university really, and a lot of people, you grew up in the same neighborhood. You went to school with the same cohort of friends and same group, and then you get to university and you don't know anyone there, or maybe not as many people. This applies to international students as well, or students from out of town. And it really just provides a sense of community where there's people you can talk to that have gone through the same struggles that you have, and of course alumni as well. There's so many people that have experienced so much in life that you now meet and can talk to and ask questions. So just the security of having a community, I would say, is the biggest thing that the fraternity provides. Along with, we do a lot of charity work, and personally I find doing charity work and helping others is a great way to actually help yourself feel better. I personally at least have a great sense of gratitude when I get to participate in events like this, or the food drives, and the fraternity facilitates that. So,
Thank you, Jonathan. So Darren, you are my question to you is when we talk about the student life could be school, could be university, or could be future too, right? Intellectual challenges or disabilities, I say, or gifted child. Social anxiety, ADHD, FASD, foster kid, language barrier, anything when we talk about, especially the social anxiety, and you are working in this field passionately, but when we talk about the school system or university system, we do not have a system in place or support in place where this child or children can get a support and or maybe successful. So what's your experience and what you do to facilitate them or help them to progress in their life?
Yes, thank you, Sunny. Well, I could probably talk for days on that topic, but
15 minutes.
15 minutes. Yeah, so as I mentioned previously when I introduced myself, so I work in post-secondary, so inclusive post-secondary education, which is supporting specifically students with intellectual disabilities to be fully included in regular programs. And part of that work in what we've learned is that people with disabilities and intellectual disabilities, especially people with intellectual disabilities, right from their early childhood are put on a separate path in their life of like professionals, a lot of like, it's focused on diagnoses, what you're not going to be able to do, a lot of limitations. And really in the work that we do is to kind of push back against that and the importance of belonging, of being fully included in community spaces, job, like having the opportunity to work, to give back and participate in community, which we've seen has a massive impact on people's lives rather than the separate path that a lot of individuals are put on. And also what we've come to understand is how that also feeds into whether intellectual disability, like if you're looking at other disabilities, which are often invisible, the barriers, the systemic barriers that are in all of our systems and post-secondary included, of accessing supports, including mental health supports. And sometimes the label itself creates a barrier in accessing even counseling on campus. We've seen that come up where it's like, oh, you have this disability, I'm not trained in this area, I can't support you. And then a student walking away feeling defeated and not getting the support that they needed, right? So there's a lot of advocacy that has to go into, not just for the students we support, but students who are experiencing disabilities, to really build understanding and a sense of belonging. The impact that belonging and connectedness, which Jonathan mentioned, was that belonging piece and being connected, has a massive impact on students' lives, and having those people you can turn to, and that social capital as well. And a shared purpose, a shared identity, and sort of shared goals has a real impact on people's lives. And so that's constantly how we kind of focus, and it's really person first, person driven.
Thank you, Darren. So my next question to Summer, whatever we do, the money comes first, but it's not everything, but the money is there. Especially for the students, right? Like when it could be international student, it could be a student from Canada. So when we come international student, we are paying like a triple fees, right? Instead of $500 per course, we are paying $1,500. But even if we are here, Canadian born, then you have a student loan, right? Then not only student loan covers the life, what you are paying for the studies, but then you have your rent, you have other things. When you finish your studies, then you have a job. But then you have to set up a job, start a new life, but then you have a debt also. You're already 50% buried in your life. Yeah. My question, as a financial advisor or as a financial expert, what your advice or thoughts are as a student life when you are going in this phase, what you can do to come, should I word you survive or float or move on? What's the right word and how to do it? Any thoughts?
Oh, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I think just being here is a win for everybody listening and us as panelists. It's a great privilege. The best thing that I can say is you touched on all the struggles, not just as a student, but as anybody would be facing, whether they were a student or not. The most important thing, I've tried to break it down, and you touched base on a few of them, and I tried to break it down to make it simpler. The number one thing for anybody is actually the financial literacy. Know what is out there, know the products, know what you are having as far as the ability to understand and effectively manage your money. What does that mean? You have to manage your money when it comes to whatever income you have. So as a student, maybe an internship or a part-time job. And those are the things that you need to just build on as you progress through the education that you are in. So the first thing is actually the literacy. Know what you're trying to manage, whether you're managing your debts, your income, your lifestyle. Those are all things that need to be managed. So having a plan, any sort of plan, even a bad plan is better than a no plan. So the thing that you need to figure out is what are the steps that actually make a financial plan for you as a student or an employee or a person. The number one is creating a budget. So you know you have a certain amount that's coming in, and how you manage that is what are your actual expenses? What is your rent? What are your things that, and always be mindful of what is coming in should be more than what's going out. So if you have to adjust, you need to learn how to adjust. The best thing is now with all these apps are there is have a budgeting app. Just, simple things. Instead of going to Starbucks, maybe just learn how to make coffee at home. Those simple things that make big differences along the way. The other thing is building an emergency fund. So even starting little as a $10 on the side, over time will build. That's called compound, right? The effect of building. If each day you put a little thing away, then you actually have a good lump sum, right? This is great when it comes to budgeting, and unfortunately, life is life, and you actually are building an emergency fund as well. Things happen, your car breaks down, your refrigerator stops working. Those little basic things where you don't want to scramble for money, putting as little as you can. Just say, for example, you go out or you purchase something and the cost of it, round up that amount. So let's say it was $10.25. You've got, so let's say you've got that 75 to make it 11. Put that in a piggy bank. I know it sounds silly, but along the way, just putting a little bit away, whether it's daily or weekly, and as your income increases, you can adjust that amount. The other thing, as students, you have to be mindful of what your loans are. So, understand what your terms and the conditions of those loans. Understand what the interest rate is. What is your repayment plan? Understand what deferred payments are. These are things that they sound really big, but if you just educate yourself just a little bit, you'll be a little bit ahead. And remember, there are lots of people out there that are able to help you. So a lot of universities might have like counselors or financial advisors or student services. Reach out. They might have someone that can help. If anybody here needs assistance, I'm more than happy to help. The other thing is you have to understand what is provided for you. For example, credit cards. Credit cards are a great way to start building your credit score. So when you want to have a house, they're going to say, oh, let's look at your credit. Well, if you haven't built anything in the banking world, it looks like you don't exist. So they don't know if you're able to pay or you're not able to pay. However, be mindful of what your credit card fees are, what your interest is. So let's take, for example, you go out, you buy something. Make sure at the end of the month, you pay that bill off. Do not spend more than what you can afford. That's the basic. So once you have a credit card, you're just like, oh, I have money. No, you don't. You have a loan. It comes with, it's attached to certain things that are actually could lead you into something called debt. And that's something you don't want to go into the workforce with some debt that you need to pay. Invest early. Yeah, there are lots of things that are available for students. Once you turn 18, TFSA is a great opportunity to start saving. a little bit of interest, a little bit of putting your money away goes a long way with time. So a lot of things that we say is like time in the market. Like the longer you stay in the market, the more that opportunities you get in return. Understand what financial products there are. So whether it was a TFSA, FHSA, tax-free savings accounts, first home buyers accounts, RRSPs, which are commonly known as registered savings plan. All these things are funds and accounts that you can actually not just put away in the bank, but look into other companies that can give you a better interest rate. Know what your financial goals are. Remember at the beginning I said any plan is better than no plan, even if it's a bad one? Put down what your goals are. What are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? For example, a short-term goal could be something like, oh, you want to buy a laptop. A long-term, you want to travel and go to Bali for 6 months. So these have different things. Read what your goals are. Try to make them a bit daily, because the more you remember, the more you're going to say, you know what, I really don't need to pass by Starbucks and get that coffee. I could save that money and put it aside instead. Avoid something we call lifestyle inflation. You know, you start off with, oh, I'm just getting paid $15, $18 an hour. Now, all of a sudden, they bump you up $1 whole, and there's like, oh, I'm making more money. Yes, but live under your means, because what happens is instead of you spending it on, oh, you used to go to McDonald's, now you're going to Earl's or Joey's every lunch break. Well, what is going to happen with that? You're actually depleting what could be your savings. So instead of increasing your lifestyle, increase your savings plan. Put that into some sort of investment. And just like I said at the beginning, seek support. I mean, I'm looking at the panelists here. We're all taking time out of our day wanting to help, right? There are lots of people that just want to help. People who volunteer, people who start all sorts of things like, what was it, your hockey game? Your hockey team? Apna Hockey. So they saw a need and they created something because they just wanted to volunteer and help out. There are more people that are willing to help and give their time than not. You just need to seek them out.
So you have learned, listen to everyone, right? We are students, we are parents, we are starting our life or different phase of our life. As a student, we have our own struggles. As a parent, we have our own struggles. As a parent, because the kids bring their stress too, right? So as a professional psychologist, and you do anxiety, PTSD, relationship issues, because when we talk about the stress, it does impact, or, relationship, not just husband and wife, relationship between your co-worker, because we take the stress to work also. Anxiety, we take it too, right? We are also scared, ask questions or not ask questions. So as a professional psychiatrist, I have to learn this too, difference between a psychiatrist and psychologist. That will be the first question. And the second is, what your expert advice will be to the students, to the parents, or
Thank you.
Psychiatrist, psychologist. I always mix that.
Okay, so psychiatrists, they are doctors, they are MDs, and they specialize in the field of brain with mental health issues, so they can prescribe medicines. That's the biggest one. Psychologists, they work with providing different kind of modalities, therapies like CBT or EMDR. You hear about that, more behavioral therapy, cognitive therapy, and so on, right? So they work with that. So that's the difference there. So psychiatrists are doctors, psychologists, they cannot prescribe. They can be doctors like me, but I cannot prescribe medications, right? So I can just provide therapies. So that's the main difference there. So it's a very interesting question, and it has so many layers. And as I was listening to all the speakers, the common theme is the community, the sense of community, mindfulness, breathing, and so on. So they're all beautiful tips that you all shared. See, stress is inbuilt in us. We have that flight or fight response. It's a very, it's a way how our body tackles with stress on a day-to-day life. So again, I'm like, some stress is important to have, because if there's no stress, obviously life will be very, very boring. So the other day I took Friday off, and I had the weekend, and I didn't have many things, and I felt that, okay, like, it's very boring. Like, there's no pressure, no deadlines to meet, nothing, and it was very, very boring. So some form of stress is important for us that helps us motivate, accomplish tasks, and so on. But it's important to figure out, like, okay, how much stress is okay and how much is not? Like, okay, what is constructive stress and what is destructive stress? So that's very, very important. And in order to figure that out, it's, you know, having self-awareness, that's very important. Self-reflection is important, because sometimes we get so carried away in life, and life itself is very chaotic. So it's just a chaos where you see when it's morning and then nighttime, and again, it's a vicious cycle. And nowadays, we want to be a part of that chaos. And if we are not a part of that chaos, we don't feel normal. We feel that, okay, we are just out of the race and we need to be a part of it. And in that race, sometimes we forget the important things like eating, sleeping, exercising. So those are the core keys, like, you know, very, very important factors in order to have balance in life. You know, so if you have heard about Maslow's hierarchy, you know, that pyramid, like, it's a pyramid, and the physiological needs are at the base, at the foundation. And what the physiological needs are at the bottom of that pyramid is, again, sleep, shelter, safety needs, and all those needs. So if those needs are not met, you cannot climb up the pyramid. So the physiological needs are very, very important to fulfill, and those are in our control. Like having a sleep routine, appetite, exercising, which is very important. And now what happens whenever we get stressed out, like even if children or parents or, you know, as professionals, those three things are out of the window. Right? Because we think that, okay, what if as a student, like, okay, I'm not going to sleep. I've seen my son, like, not sleeping for 3 days, 3 nights in a row because I have exam, I can't sleep. And now what it's going to do is it's going to impact your memory. It's impacting your motivation, your ability to think straight. You know, so those are the very, very important things that you need to understand that, okay, the basics, that's where you start with. The other part is, emotional awareness. Practicing emotional awareness is very important. What it includes is, first of all, being aware. I think it was you said, like, about, like, connecting with your body. That's important. Trying to figure out, if I'm going through a stressful phase in my life, what actually is happening to my body? Is my heart beating faster? Is it something different, like what's happening in my stomach? Just do a body scan. And if once you do that, and then you connect with, like, okay, what exactly am I feeling? Like, if my heart is beating faster, is it anxiety? Is it stress? If I'm having a heaviness in my heart, is it sadness? What exactly it is? You need to name, identify the feelings attached to that sensation. And then the third is, acceptance is very important. I tell my clients, roll with resistance. Do not fight with it. If you fight with resistance, what's going to happen? It's going to become more complex. But when you roll with resistance, when you accept that, okay, you know what, like, I'm going through a tough phase, accept it. When you accept it, it becomes easy to kind of, like, you know, focus, and it's easy to think straight. That's important. And once you figure that out, once you accept it, then the next step is to recognize, if I'm anxious, what is the need behind this anxiety? What is the need behind these feelings? If I'm sad, what do I need? If I'm sleepy, that's a feeling, so what do I need? I want to sleep. If I'm tired, I want to relax. That's the need. If I'm anxiety, I want reassurance. I want to calm down. So you start going behind the scenes, like, okay, what are the needs behind these feelings? And once you recognize that, are there resources inbuilt in me, around me, or do I need to reach out for those resources in order to fulfill those needs? So and usually what happens when people get stressed, they get caught up in the first two, sensations and feelings, that's all. I'm tired, like, okay, I can't think straight, I'm exhausted, or I'm sad, I'm anxious, I can't focus. And then the next steps, they don't get, like, they get so caught up with those first two steps that they have a hard time. It becomes more of a vicious cycle. And you feel trapped. And when you're in that zone, what happens, even if there are options around you, you're not able to think straight. You feel, okay, they are too far off, I can't reach to those options. That becomes more of a reactive approach. Now, being proactive, that's the key. And what proactive is identify that, okay, this is my challenge or challenges, and each day is different. Some days they are more, some days they are less. Once you identify them, prioritize them. Out of those 5 challenges, if I have today, which one is the number one that needs my attention the foremost? And second most, third most, and so on. And once you prioritize that, then you think, okay, this is the number one problem. How do I feel about it? And once the feelings are identified, then you think about what are the options available. What is in my control? And then you work with the things that are in your control. And if you feel that, okay, things are out of my control, sometimes it's important to let go of those because you can't do anything. If you think that, okay, today it's going to be rainy, or today the weather is like it's too cold, you can't control that. Either you can sit fixated on it and just start, tumbling down, or you just accept it, roll with it, and then you start to figure out your options. That's important. So having those freedom, like the freedom of choice, having those options where you have control, and that makes you feel that, okay, what exactly is anxiety? Anxiety is just when you feel that, okay, things are not in my control. And what's in your control? The here and the now. Okay, I'm going to get up, I'm going to eat. Did I eat? Did I sleep? Did I relax? Did I breathe? When you start, like, these are simple things, but consistency is important. And the biggest thing is communication. With your children, with spending time, like at college and school levels, like having that community. Because when the transition happens, there's that sense of loss in terms of community. Because whatever the students have acquired or established up till high school, like they have to leave their families, they have to leave their neighborhood, the community in which they grew up, they have to go different, like, for international students, like, they have to leave their families, or even out of province students, or even within the city, you get so much involved in your school, so it seems that, okay, it's further and further. So trying to connect with also your support system, like old friends are good, mentors, parents, that's very, very important, because someone who's in your corner, that's very important to ask yourself this question. Who is in my corner, and like, can I have difficult conversations with them? Like openness, transparency, that's very, very important, and having those conversations, and at the same time try to build some new connections on campus, off campus. What are the support system? Reaching out, talking, having mentors in life, that's very, very important. So having those connections, mindfulness, and all those tips that all the panelists shared, I think like that helps, and it goes a long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gill, and thank you, everyone, for giving your expertise, your experience, and now we are open for question and answer. So if you have a general question or you have any specific question to any panelist, please. Cameron.
I don't know if I'm going to touch anything right now. I don't. I can speak loud enough, I think everybody can hear me. I was just wondering what can be done about the overburdened healthcare system and access to mental health services and wait times. I guess that's directed, I suppose you would be the expert of this sort of a thing, or having some awareness there. But are you paid, like a paid service, or are you doing with healthcare, or like AHS?
No, I am not with AHS. So I have a private practice and also work with the Psychologists Association of Alberta. Right, so of course, like that's a crisis, mental health crisis, like wait times and so on. So we are all struggling with those kind of issues, and obviously, you know, like you have to find out, like first of all, right, from a mental health perspective, I know things have shifted. You know, there are more resources available in the schools and colleges, in universities. More and more people are talking about mental health. You know, it seems it's more acceptable. There's still some stigma, but not as much, right? Like, for example, events like this where we are talking. So it's important to find out the resources in the community where you can access those supports. That's important, right? So there are, like, sometimes, like, you know, pro bono work, like some of the psychologists, like I also do some pro bono work from time to time. If people contact me and they say that they don't have insurance, and you know, even seeking counseling from a psychologist is very expensive. You know, you have to make a choice, like, do I need to buy food out of this money, or do I spend, you know, this for, you know, a counseling session? So, of course, like, that's very challenging. But at the same time, of course, there are certain doctors, like, who can help them connect, you know, with different organizations who are providing that. Psychologists Association of Alberta, Emma, is here. So many a times, you know, the members of the public, they call PAA for guidance, you know. So Emma can provide all those kind of information as where to connect, and those pathways, you know, that those are important. As far as the wait times, I'm not sure. Like, of course, I hope there were some government officials or someone who could answer that question. So I'm not sure. I'm also a part of that, like, where we are struggling with that, and I hope things get better. But at the same time, with a sense of community, with some kind of support, like when we discuss those things, certainly we are able to find certain answers and get those supports. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. First of all, I had a question regarding, when we were talking about mental health, we were talking about anxiety and the different pressures of, like, what's in my control, what's not in my control. There is a term that has been gone around, and I'm not sure if it is the right term associated with the feelings, but it's called imposter syndrome. I'm not sure if that's the right term or not. Please correct me if it is not. But I feel the feelings associated with imposter syndrome are very real, what maybe a lot of people feel. I'm wondering, where do these feelings of, I'm not good enough to this, should I say this, should I not, or I'm in a room full of, you know, X, Y, and Z people, school, work, where some people might feel like, I don't know if I should, you know, go forward or speak forward because I don't have, let's say, the qualifications, or it could just be all up here in your mind. Where do these feelings, I guess, come from? Is it just, I'm assuming it would be more than just with the individual, it would be more structurally as well. There could be so many different factors. Where do these feelings arise from, and how can we, I guess, mitigate those types of feelings? I hope that makes any sense.
Your view as well. So imposter symptoms, it's not just syndrome, sorry. It's not just the students. It could be happening to anyone, you know. So whenever we are going through stressful times, transitions, or any, you know, lots of challenges and trying to deal with those. So sometimes what happens is that, you know, we start having those self-doubts. You know, so and any kind of self-doubt, when we are struggling with challenges, figuring out, or if it's a new environment, we are transitioning to that. So we just, like, that is catastrophic thinking. It leads to catastrophic thinking, right? And then we go on a downward spiral. We hesitate to talk. We hesitate to, like, we focus more on what others are going to think about us, right? Am I doing the right thing? Even if you're at a certain position, you start doubting yourself, you think that, okay, you're not good enough. So there are lots of cognitive distortions that we struggle with in those times. And if we are not mindful of those, that what happens if we let it sit for a longer time, we get caught into that. And then it starts pulling onto our self-esteem, self-worth, and then what happens? More self-doubt, right? And then it becomes more of a cycle. So whenever you're going through this, it's important to talk to a professional about it. What exactly is going on? Am I stressed about something? Something is going on in my life? Where are these doubts coming? Like if someone has made a comment, just a subtle comment. Sometimes, bullying is everywhere. People just make those subtle comments. They think that that's not a big deal. But how each of us are different, how we take on that. And there could be some underlying issues, or we have gone through certain traumatic events in our life, and sometimes those comments might trigger, those situations might trigger those, Okay, thank you. So,
want to say something?
Yeah, want to? Yeah, and then Carolina, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was well said by Harpreet about the imposter syndrome, but I wanted to touch on specifically kind of some moments that I've found, and in spaces like these or any other types of events that I've been to, is really finding your purpose. Like, what is your purpose? Mm-hmm. Then you go into the deep root level and say, this is my purpose, this is my goal, and then this is what I'm going to do about that specific situation. Sometimes we're really quick to judge on that situation, and we kind of go into our thoughts, right? But I think going deep down into finding your purpose and why you're in that room and saying what the goals are and speak on that. So that was just a quick little tip I wanted to provide as well.
That's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then I just want to say, I think, as was mentioned before, mindfulness is a big one as well. So if you're aware of why you're feeling that way, it can help you solve the problem. So, identifying the problem first. I do think one thing that's really overlooked, or not maybe considered as much, is if you challenge yourself and you set a goal. And it doesn't have to be a big goal, maybe just a small one. And you write it down so you remember it, and you work to achieve that goal. Achieving that goal is something that can give you a lot of confidence and a lot of self-esteem that'll help mitigate those feelings in the first place. And as was mentioned before, if it does get out of control, seeking help in others is a great one. And I think it's important to recognize, does anyone really know what's happening or know what's going on at all times? Not really. People just try their best. They're just doing their best to get on in life, and I think it's really important to not, sell yourself short, and just recognize that the challenges that you're going through, other people are going through as well. And then one tip I just have is, or that helped me, was exercise. So it can be really hard to exercise, and it can be challenging, but at the same time, it's something that you can do where you can see steady progress. And you get a feeling of satisfaction in the work you've done, and I feel like that can really help with imposter syndrome or not feeling like you've done enough or capable of enough. Same thing with writing down your achievements. I'm sure if anyone in the room went down and wrote things that they're proud of doing, achievements in their life, things that make them happy, all those things can really help with mental health in general, but specifically with, imposter syndrome or, confidence.
Thanks. One thing I wanted to touch on is everybody's striving for something, so everybody struggles in their own way. The one advice that I would think is probably applies to many things in life is just surrounding yourself with the right people. You need people that fill your bucket. You need people that elevate you. You need people that encourage you. There's enough negativity in the world, you don't need to surround yourself with that. So you need to identify those things that actually increase whatever insecurities that you may have, and just, they don't serve you. Those people don't serve you. So a lot of the conversation was the community that you're surrounding yourself in. So take a look at, what that looks like, and then you surround yourself with the people that you either want to aspire to be like, because then that's going to push you even more in, like, oh, this person, it's almost like a roadmap for things. You've seen, oh, this person has an amazing achievement in whatever the goal you wanted to achieve, and so you look at their path. That's why there's a lot of things with, oh, these are the successful people, and these are what they've done. And even though you know what your goal is, and achieving it is a highlight, but the journey to get to that goal is also part of what you're supposed to enjoy, so make it enjoyable, right? Surround yourself with those kinds of uplifting people that fill your bucket and not drain it. So.
I'll also add my flavor to it. Anytime I have negative thoughts or, the insecurities, I just like that cancel button, just like that was easy button, I'm like, cancel that and fill myself up with a positive thought, right? Change it around. And then any other time when you are really struggling with something, ask from your heart. When you ask yourself a question from your heart, the first thing that comes to your mind is the truth. And it will keep you engaged and in tune with your own intuition. We all are born with intuition, and you have it for a reason. And so if you have, I should say this, you're supposed to say it. So be bold enough to say it and know that it's for a reason because somebody else needs to hear it. That's all I have to say.
I can add to what Tabet said, challenging your self-talk is very important, right? Like, you challenge your self-talk. Where did this come from? What are the facts that are supporting it? Whether it's irrational or there are certain facts that are supporting it. So when you try to go into deeply and see, and sometimes it could be just like one time I had a client, I thought after maybe it would be a last session or so, right? Things were really going good. So he came in and he said okay, I'm very anxious today. I didn't sleep for a few days. Things are not good. And I said, what's happened? So and I said, can you write down, what exactly happened? And he started writing down, I did something at work, and it was a mistake. I have never told anyone since then. I'm having sleepless nights. I'm going to lose my job once they find this out, and I won't have any income, and I'll lose my house, and I will just end up being in my car by the river. So those were his, and it was just spiraling down, and then I just started exploring what exactly happened. And he said, something happened. It's not that, okay, I have committed a crime or something like that, but the mistake, I didn't tell anyone and they didn't figure it out so far. And then he started thinking, he said, okay, I have worked since I was 15 years old. He said, even if I lose this job, I'm sure I'm going to find out because I have good work ethics that way. I'm hardworking. And he said, okay, oh my God. He said, why I was thinking and having those sleepless nights, because there were no facts that were supporting that he would end up on the streets by the river in his car and I'll lose everything. So sometimes when we start analyzing, looking into what are the facts, and it really helps us to challenge those negative self-talk and replace it with something positive, like positive affirmations. Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate a lot of the comments that are, for the panel here. The one thing that I've, in your question that I got was, why do we have the thoughts we have?
Sometimes they're other people's thoughts.
I don't disagree, okay? And then what we do with them, okay? It's the chewing of our own cud. In other words, the thoughts that are of ourselves because of external things that have either happened or somebody has said something to us, and we're then internalizing those thoughts. There's two options, positive or negative. Be self-aware on how you're speaking to yourself. If you're negative to yourself, you're going to get a negative outcome. So your patient that had the going down that road, okay, because it was a negative thought to a negative thought to a negative thought. One thing that I find is typically our thoughts and our actions sometimes are directed by our fears. And the one thing that I've found is fear doesn't actually exist. It's something, so for example, your patient, he was fearful at the end of the day to be homeless in his car by the side of the road, by the river. That probably would never happen. He came to the realization that that fear didn't exist. When we understand that our fears don't exist, then we actually can empower ourselves by positive self-talk, understanding that sometimes it's just the state of our body. When we're feeling depressed, and what are our thoughts when we're feeling this way? Sometimes it's just the state of our physical being to help our mental being. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Russ. Any other question? If not, I have one for you and one for you. Dear Harpreet, I have a question. Like sometimes we have a culture taboos also. Culture taboo, mental mental stress is nothing. You are a guy, you can't cry. It's just a life. Move on. So you are not only stressed, but you have a culture, not the culture, it's, culturally you are not supposed to be admitting you have a stress, especially for the guys. No offense. So guys or male, no, be a man, just straightforward. You cannot be stressed, you cannot, because you are holding the fort, whatever the word you want to use it. And then a culture, and then social. How, as a male, father, brother, how you how you handle that? Or firstly, not handling, admitting it. I need a help. So what your advice is, like admitting I need a help is the first challenge, how to come over.
Yeah, I'll try to answer. It's a complex one. Of course, there are certain layers, and the first and the foremost is if you want to change, if you admit, if you realize, then only you can make those changes. No one can force you, no matter where you go. And the one thing that is very important to understand is whether male, female, like whatever gender, but first of all, we are humans, So as humans, of course, we have feelings. Years ago when we moved here from India, initially, I didn't know what to do. Like nowadays, things are different. Like when students who are coming or like people who are migrating, they already have connections. They know what to do, like social media, technology and all those kind of things. I didn't know much except I had a phone number of my prof who had moved to Calgary, right? And then initially, there are lots of challenges. It's not that, okay, I had my PhD, like, okay, right away, you get your evaluations done and all that. So I thought, like, okay, maybe I should start working somewhere in order to figure out what the culture is. So I started working at Gap at the retail store in Calgary. So coming from India, and I was working there, did my PhD, and I also was working in a school. The culture is different. Of course, you can afford to hire people to work as opposed to here, so there are lots of challenges. And then by the end of the day, my legs would hurt and I would cry. I would come home and I would cry like, oh my God, where did I get stuck? Like 8 hours of shift and I'm doing everything. And one day my mother-in-law said like, oh, you shouldn't be crying, you're a psychologist. I said, like, I am a human. I have feelings. I don't care who I am. So, of course, like, okay, as you mentioned, like, okay, sometimes men, like, or, they may think that, okay, no, I'm not going to, I need to be the strong person. Like, okay, this, and it could be the cultural part as well, that, okay, like, you shouldn't be crying, you shouldn't be doing this. But I think, like, one should change with the times. One should change with the culture around it where they are living. One should change with the needs as well, right? Like, okay, listen to your children, like, try to provide them support. And if you are just holding on to that strength, like, basically there is weakness inside, but you're trying to protect those with the other layers. It could be so many other layers. So I think it's important. Education is important. Advocacy is important. It's time for discussions like these, and think about it, self-reflect, and then make the changes accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gill. Darren, question for you. Social anxiety, right? When we talk about the social anxiety, especially with the children, like, they're school going or they are, especially school going. So you have a child at school and he has a social anxiety. He is not playing, very difficult to make friends, or, at school or in a social structure. He's stuck at the computer because that is his scapegoat, playing games. As a parent, you're scared, you don't know where he's going. He doesn't want to talk to you. Puberty, age, everything makes a difference, right? As a parent, how do you handle it? And what support parents have to deal with the child problem? Child has his own problem, parents has his own problem, because parents are working and then they go home and they see the child is stuck on a computer from morning 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. As a parent, what you can do without threatening a child to improve a child's life?
Without threatening.
Yeah,
Without
that's
threatening. We're going to go out and you're going to have fun.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that typically would be the best approach. Yeah, I think, well, in the field I work in around disability and stuff, we see a lot of this. And that can come right into college, university life. It's not just young children, especially with disability, especially disabilities that impact their ability to connect with others. And speaking like on the autism spectrum. But what we've really found is in supporting various students, and I'm going to speak to this from post-secondary because that's where I work, students who come in with, have had that challenge throughout their life, through the K-12 system, really struggling to make friends and not really knowing how to navigate that, or not feeling that sense of belonging, or people don't understand me, all these pieces, right? And what we've found is that, what's the phrase? It's always, we always try to think of it, and this seems to work better, is think of a pull versus a push strategy with individuals. So rather than just forcing them into social situations, or like, you're just going to go do this, you're going to have fun, you're going to make friends, that's 99% of the time is probably not going to work. Especially if they do have a lot of anxiety, or have, struggles in how to interact with others, what are the social norms, all these pieces. So we think about, knowing your child's interests, their goals, where there are other people who share similar interests, similar goals. A lot of things we base, how are everyone's friendships develop? Usually it's around a shared interest, a shared culture, shared community, all these pieces. How do we find people in that space or in those communities to pull them in? And sometimes it's a little bit behind the scenes of like, so at university level, if I know a student's really struggling, doesn't want to go talk to anyone, but I know they're really interested in, say, paleontology, and there's a paleontology group where I know students they're all interested in a specific thing, behind the scenes, I have a conversation with some of the gatekeepers, the leaders in that space, and intentionally to have them invite that student in. So they're pulling someone in rather than me trying to push. Because usually that sense of like, we want you here, you are valued, come join us. That can also have a big impact on a child or a student's desire and ability to really want to be in that space, to build friendships, to be connected, is that someone's pulling them in and recognizing they have value, we want you here, right? No matter what you might find difficult in navigating that space, we understand, you're welcome, and we're with you, right?
Thank you, Darren.
Could I add on?
Please.
So I really like the whole, the poll thing you mentioned. I think that's a really, really good example. And I think for more focused on the video game part, Sunny, like you said, as a parent often, or as a parent, it's very different saying, get off your computer or you unplug the internet, and then they see you just sit on a couch on your phone. If you do that, kids aren't dumb, they're really smart. They're gonna know that, that's not right, or not just or fair. And even though, you have your different ideas about it as a parent, it's gonna be really hard for the kid to understand how that's gonna happen. So something you can do is do things with them. Say, hey, do you wanna come outside with me and do this? It's that pull where you're doing something with them, especially as a kid where, sometimes there's not going to be, kids aren't as welcoming. Like if you're in university, there's this big group, like you said, paleontology, for example. As a kid, there are summer camps and things like that, but just going outside with your kid and doing things with them is a much better way of encouraging them to do things other than play video games, for example, I've found. So.
Can I quickly add to that? Nowadays, technology, it's everywhere, right? So I think what you both mentioned, very, very good points, and it's really, really helpful. But also, I think it's also time to embrace it as well in a positive way, where you can be the role models, the kind of content that is being watched, right? So you can educate, the students or children, what kind of content is okay to watch, right? And there's lots of misinformation. What is fake news and what is the correct news? So I think education is very, very important, because sometimes it's very hard to keep up now with AI and all those kind of things. When we say, okay, you can't use it, they need to learn to use, but how can we help them in order to use it in a safe manner and in a balanced way? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any last question before we move to the next phase? We have a small token of thank you for all the panelists. Thank you, sir. Jaren, thank you, sir. Jonathan. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Summer. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jabat. Thank you. you. Dr. Joe. Thank you, everyone. If we can have a group picture, if we can come forward.